You ever feel like reality itself is playing a cosmic joke on you? Like you're trapped in some kind of prison you didn't even know existed until someone pointed it out? Well, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into one of the most mind-bending concepts from Gnostic philosophy. We're talking about the monad's secret plan and why the Demiurge, that blind idiot god, was actually allowed to create this material prison we call reality. And hey, if you're into this kind of reality-shattering content, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for where this rabbit hole leads. So let's start with the basics. In Gnostic cosmology, the monad is the ultimate source, the absolute transcendent reality beyond all comprehension. Think of it as the original consciousness from which everything emanates. It's perfect, it's complete, it's infinite. The monad doesn't lack anything, it just is. Pure being, pure awareness, pure potential. Now here's where it gets interesting. From this monad emanates a series of divine beings called eons. These aren't gods in the traditional sense. They're more like attributes or aspects of the divine consciousness itself, paired in complementary opposites, existing in this realm called the pleroma, which basically means fullness. Everything's perfect in the pleroma until one of these eons, Sophia, whose name literally means wisdom, decides to do something without her consort. She wants to know the monad directly, to comprehend the incomprehensible. And in Gnostic texts, this desire, this passion, this reaching beyond her station creates a disruption. Her attempt to grasp the absolute without going through the proper emanation process results in the birth of something flawed. That something is the Demiurge. This being is born from Sophia's passion but without the divine spark properly integrated. He's ignorant of the higher realms. He doesn't know about the monad or the pleroma. He thinks he's the top dog, the one true god. Now the Demiurge looks around and there's nothing but chaos, formless void. So what does he do? He creates. He fashions the material cosmos, organizing matter into planets, stars, and eventually life itself. He creates the physical universe with all its laws and limitations. Time, space, entropy, death, all of it, and here's the kicker. He creates human bodies and traps divine sparks, fragments of the pleroma inside them. That's us. We're literally pieces of the divine consciousness imprisoned in matter, in bodies that decay, in a world governed by a false god who doesn't even know he's false. So here's the million-dollar question. If the monad is truly all-powerful, truly transcendent and perfect, why did it allow this cosmic mistake to happen? Why would the ultimate source of everything permit the creation of a prison that traps fragments of itself in suffering and ignorance? Was it actually a mistake at all, or is there something deeper going on? This is where most people get stuck. They see the Gnostic narrative as this tragic cosmic accident, a divine oops that resulted in our suffering. But what if that's not the whole story? Let's think about this from a different angle. The monad exists in absolute perfection, right? Total unity, total completeness. But here's a paradox. How can something experience growth, change, or self-knowledge if it's already complete? How can the infinite know itself when there's nothing outside itself to provide contrast? In human terms, you only know what light is because you've experienced darkness. You only understand joy because you've felt sorrow. The monad, in its perfect unity, might be complete, but it lacks experiential self-knowledge. It knows itself theoretically, but not experientially. What if the entire cosmic drama, the fall of Sophia, the creation of the Demiurge, the formation of the material prison was never an accident? What if it was the monad's secret plan all along? Think about it. By allowing fragments of itself to descend into matter, to experience separation, limitation, suffering, and ignorance, the monad creates the conditions for a new kind of knowing. Each soul trapped in matter goes through a journey. We forget who we are, we struggle, we seek. We eventually remember our divine origin through gnosis, direct experiential knowledge of the divine. This means every soul that awakens from the illusion, that breaks free from the Demiurge's prison, brings back to the pleroma something that wasn't there before: experiential wisdom, the knowledge of what it means to be separated and then reunited, the understanding of darkness that makes light meaningful, the appreciation of unity that only comes from having experienced division. In other words, we're not just victims of a cosmic accident. We're participants in the monad's grand experiment in self-knowledge. Some Gnostic texts hint at this. They talk about the divine sparks returning to the pleroma, not diminished by their experience in matter but enriched. They bring back the treasure of knowledge earned through suffering and transcendence. The monad doesn't just want to be complete in abstract perfection. It wants to know itself through infinite variations of experience. And the material cosmos, as harsh and limiting as it is, provides exactly that opportunity. It's a school, not just a prison. But let's address the obvious objection. If this was all planned, doesn't that make the monad responsible for all the suffering in the world? For every injustice, every pain, every tragedy? Here's where we need to understand the difference between permission and causation. The monad didn't create the suffering directly. The Demiurge did that through his ignorant fashioning of a flawed material world. The monad simply allowed the conditions where such creation could occur. It's like a parent allowing a child to make mistakes knowing that's how growth happens. The Demiurge, in his ignorance, truly believes he's creating something good. He's proud of his creation. He demands worship. He gets jealous when humans seek knowledge beyond what he's provided. This is the God of the Old Testament in Gnostic interpretation. Not evil exactly, but limited, ignorant, and possessive. He's doing the best he can with his flawed understanding. And in doing so, he creates exactly the challenging environment souls need to develop experiential wisdom. He's an unwitting participant in the monad's larger plan. Think of it like this. Imagine you're designing a video game meant to teach courage. You need obstacles, enemies, challenges that feel genuinely difficult to the player. The player experiences real frustration, real setbacks. But from the designer's perspective, every challenge serves the purpose of development. The Demiurge is like an AI dungeon master who thinks he's running the whole show, but is actually operating within parameters set by a higher intelligence. His limitations and his ignorance are features, not bugs. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Sophia, whose passion created the Demiurge, doesn't just abandon her mistake. In many Gnostic texts, she works to correct the imbalance she created. She hides seeds of light in the material creation. She whispers truth to those who can hear. She sends emanations, including Christ in some traditions, to wake people up from the Demiurge's illusion. Her fall wasn't just an error, it was a descent with purpose. She goes down into the lower realms to plant the very means of escape. This creates a beautiful symmetry. The same act that created the problem contains the seeds of its solution. Sophia falls, creates the Demiurge, but in doing so establishes a connection between the pleroma and the material world. She becomes the bridge. Her divine presence, even in fragmented form, permeates creation and calls to the trapped sparks, reminding them of their true home. The prison has a key hidden inside it from the beginning. The game is rigged in favor of eventual awakening. What does this mean for us practically? If we're fragments of the divine experiencing separation as part of the monad's plan, then our suffering isn't meaningless. Every challenge we face, every moment of confusion or pain is an opportunity for growth that contributes to the cosmic evolution of consciousness itself. We're not just trying to escape a prison. We're gathering experiential treasure to bring back home. We're the monad's way of knowing itself through the contrast of limitation and transcendence. Gnosis, that direct experiential knowledge of the divine, becomes the key. It's not about believing the right things or performing the right rituals. It's about remembering who you really are. It's about seeing through the Demiurge's illusion and recognizing the divine spark within yourself and all beings. When you achieve Gnosis, you're not just saving yourself. You're completing a circuit of consciousness that enriches the entire pleroma. You're bringing back the treasure the monad sent you to find. This perspective also explains why the path is so difficult. If awakening were easy, everyone would do it immediately and the whole experiment would be over before any real depth of experience could accumulate. The difficulty is part of the design. The Demiurge's archons, those rulers and authorities that keep souls trapped in ignorance, provide resistance that makes the eventual breakthrough meaningful. You don't appreciate freedom until you've struggled against bondage. You don't value knowledge until you've wandered in ignorance. There's also a profound implication for how we view the material world. Yes, it's a prison created by an ignorant God, but it's also a school created with the tacit permission of the ultimate divine source. Matter isn't purely evil. It's limited, it's temporary, but it serves a purpose in the grand design. The goal isn't to hate the physical world, but to see through it, to recognize it for what it is, a temporary classroom where consciousness learns about itself through constraint and eventual liberation. Some Gnostic traditions speak of the eventual restoration of all things when every spark returns to the pleroma, when even the Demiurge himself will be redeemed through knowledge of the true God beyond him. This isn't just about individual escape, it's about the transformation of all reality. The material cosmos itself will be transfigured when enough consciousness awakens. The prison becomes transparent, the illusion dissolves. And what remains is the monad knowing itself in a vastly richer way than before the whole cosmic drama began. The secret plan, then, is this. The monad allows separation so that reunion becomes possible. It permits ignorance so that knowledge becomes meaningful. It allows the Demiurge to create a prison so that souls can experience the profound journey from captivity to freedom, from ignorance to gnosis, from fragmentation to wholeness. Every soul that completes this journey adds a unique perspective to the infinite self-awareness of the divine source. We're not cosmic accidents. We're cosmic explorers gathering treasures in the land of shadows. So what do you do with this information? First, recognize that your struggles might be part of a larger pattern of meaning. You're not being punished, you're being refined. Second, seek gnosis actively. Question the reality presented to you by authorities and systems. Look within for direct knowledge of the divine. Third, help others wake up. Share insights, plant seeds of doubt in the Demiurge's illusion. Be like Sophia, working from within the system to liberate consciousness. Fourth, gather your treasures. Every experience, painful or joyful, contains wisdom. Extract it, integrate it, bring it back to the divine source through your own awakening. The monad's secret plan was never to prevent the prison. It was to ensure that the prison would ultimately serve the evolution of consciousness itself. The Demiurge thinks he's the master, but he's the tool. Sophia seems to have fallen, but she's the savior. We seem to be trapped, but we're the treasure hunters. And the treasure we're hunting is the experiential knowledge of what it means to be divine, to fall, to forget, to seek, to remember, and finally to return home changed, enriched, and whole. That's the secret. The prison was always meant to be escaped, and the escape was always part of the plan. Now you might be wondering, how does this secret plan actually unfold in your individual life? How do you go from intellectual understanding of this cosmic drama to actually living it, breathing it, embodying it? Because knowing the theory is one thing. Walking the path is something entirely different. The beauty of Gnostic philosophy is that it's not just abstract metaphysics locked away in dusty texts. It's a practical guide to awakening that you can apply starting right now, in this very moment. Think about your daily life for a second. Every day you wake up and participate in systems designed to keep you asleep. You go to work for a system that doesn't have your highest good in mind. You consume content carefully crafted to distract you from deeper truths. You follow rules you never agreed to, live by values you never chose, and chase goals that don't actually fulfill you. The Demiurge doesn't need to use whips and chains anymore. He uses comfort, convenience, and constant distraction. The prison is invisible because we've become comfortable inside it. Seeking gnosis means waking up to this reality. It means asking hard questions. Why do I believe what I believe? Who benefits from my ignorance? What would I think, feel, and do if I wasn't afraid? What would I pursue if society wasn't telling me who to be? These aren't easy questions. Most people don't want to ask them because the answers disrupt the comfortable illusion. But if you're watching this, you're already asking them. You're already feeling the call to something deeper. The interesting thing about awakening is that it's not a straight line. It's more like spiraling. You'll have moments of clarity where everything makes sense, where you feel connected to something greater, where the illusion becomes transparent, and then you'll slip back. You'll fall back into unconsciousness, back into the default patterns, back into the prison. This isn't failure. This is the natural rhythm of awakening. Even advanced spiritual practitioners have these cycles. The key is noticing the pattern and gently bringing yourself back to consciousness again and again until it becomes your baseline rather than the exception. One practical way to accelerate this process is through what we might call contemplative skepticism. This is different from cynicism. Cynicism says nothing matters and everyone's lying. Contemplative skepticism says, let me examine this closely and verify it against my direct experience. When you hear something claimed as truth, whether it's from a religious institution, a government, a scientist, or even a spiritual teacher, pause and ask yourself, do I actually know this to be true through my own direct experience? Or am I just accepting it because an authority told me to? This is how you develop your own gnosis. You stop outsourcing your truth to external authorities and start cultivating direct knowing. You meditate, you observe your thoughts without judging them. You notice the gap between stimulus and response where your true freedom lies. You pay attention to synchronicities and patterns in your life. You listen to your intuition. These are all forms of gnosis, ways of accessing knowing that doesn't come through the thinking mind but through deeper levels of consciousness. Another key element is understanding that other people are not your enemies. The Demiurge is not your enemy either, really. What you're fighting is ignorance, not individuals. When you see someone trapped in the illusion, someone consumed by materialism or blind obedience to authority, that's not someone to hate, that's someone asleep. And you were asleep too at some point. Compassion becomes your most powerful tool. When you approach others with genuine care and understanding rather than judgment, you create an opening for them to potentially awaken. This brings us back to Sophia's role. She didn't escape the prison and wash her hands of creation. She committed to working within it, through it, and for it. She plants seeds of awakening everywhere. When you share an insight with a friend, when you ask a question that makes someone think differently, when you model a life guided by inner truth rather than external authority, you're doing Sophia's work. You're not separate from the cosmic rescue mission. You're part of it. Your awakening helps others. Your example plants seeds that might germinate in someone else's consciousness years from now. There's also the question of how to navigate the material world while recognizing its limitations. Some people misunderstand Gnostic philosophy to mean they should reject the physical world entirely, become ascetic, remove themselves from society. But that's not necessarily the answer. You can live in the world without being trapped by it. You can participate in material life without being defined by it. You can have relationships, create art, build things, enjoy physical pleasure while simultaneously maintaining an inner awareness that none of this is your ultimate reality. Key is non-attachment with engagement. You engage fully with life. You care about your relationships, your work, your contributions, but you hold it all lightly, knowing it's temporary, knowing it's part of the game but not the whole truth of who you are. This prevents two extremes. On one side, obsessive attachment that causes suffering when things inevitably change. On the other side, checked-out apathy where you stop caring about anything or anyone. The middle path is to love fully while remembering you're eternal. There's also wisdom in understanding that the Demiurge's world operates by certain laws. Karma is real in this system. Action and consequence are woven into the fabric of material reality. So even though this world is a prison and an illusion, it's also a school where choices matter. You can't just ignore conventional morality and claim you're enlightened. The actions you take ripple out. They affect other consciousness fragments trying to awaken. When you act with integrity, when you honor others' freedom and dignity, when you contribute to the awakening of consciousness around you, you're aligned with the monad's plan whether you consciously realize it or not. Some spiritual teachers talk about transcending good and evil, which sounds profound but can be misused to justify harmful behavior. The Gnostic perspective is more nuanced. Yes, from the perspective of the monad, all is one and all is divine. But from the perspective of the material world and the souls imprisoned in it, choices matter. The choice to awaken versus the choice to stay asleep matters. The choice to help others awaken versus the choice to profit from their ignorance matters. Transcendence of duality comes through ethical action, not before it. Let's also talk about the role of love in this cosmic drama. Love is mentioned less in Gnostic texts than knowledge, but it's equally important. Real love, agape, the kind that transcends self-interest and personal attachment, this is what activates gnosis. When you genuinely love, you drop the walls of separation. You recognize yourself in the other person. You feel their pain as your pain. You want their awakening as much as your own. This is experiential knowledge of unity. This is gnosis in action. Love and knowledge are ultimately the same thing, just expressed through different faculties. This means that your spiritual path isn't about becoming isolated in a meditation cave. It's about loving more deeply, seeing through the illusions that separate you from others, recognizing the divine spark in every being, including those who oppose you or hurt you. This is radically difficult. It's easier to hate enemies than to love them, but it's also the most powerful force for transformation available to you. When you genuinely love someone, even if they haven't earned it in conventional terms, you're activating something divine within you. You're remembering who you really are. The journey back to the pleroma, the journey of remembering your true nature, involves integrating all the lessons the material world teaches you. You don't escape by denying your experiences. You escape by learning from them, extracting their wisdom and bringing that wisdom into your consciousness. The soul that awakens is not the same as the soul that fell. It carries new depth, that's the whole point. You're bringing something back that wasn't there before. Consider how many lifetimes or incarnations this might take. Some Gnostic schools taught reincarnation. The idea is that you don't necessarily wake up in one lifetime. You might spend many cycles forgetting and remembering, getting trapped and breaking free, learning and relearning the same lessons until they finally stick. This isn't punishment. It's the pace at which consciousness evolves. Some souls wake up quickly, some take longer. All paths eventually lead home. And each journey, long or short, adds to the richness of the monad's self-knowledge. There's also the question of what happens after you awaken. Do you immediately ascend out of your body and return to the pleroma? In some Gnostic traditions, the answer involves a kind of journey. The awakened soul must navigate through various levels of reality, encountering guardians and rulers, passing tests of knowledge. You need to know the true names of beings, understand the hidden structures of reality, avoid the traps set by those who want to keep consciousness imprisoned. This describes a process, not an instantaneous escape. But here's what's important. These tests are not arbitrary. They're designed to ensure that only consciousness that has genuinely awakened returns. Only a soul that truly understands the nature of reality and its own divinity can navigate this path successfully. The Demiurge can't stop an enlightened being. His power only extends over those who believe in his authority and accept his limitations. Once you know who you really are, his prison has no hold on you. It's like discovering the door was never locked. You just had to stop believing you were trapped. This touches on something profound about the nature of the prison itself. It only exists because we accept it. The chains only hold us because we believe they can. This is why gnosis is so dangerous from the Demiurge's perspective. He needs you ignorant. He needs you believing his world is the only world, his authority the only authority, his rules the only rules. Once you see through that illusion, once you know there's something higher, the whole system loses its power over you. Yet the Demiurge will fight this awakening in you. He has servants, what Gnostic texts call archons or rulers, that work to maintain the illusion. In ancient times they were described as cosmic beings. In modern terms, we might see them as structures of power, systems of control, narratives designed to keep you small and unconscious. Social media is an archontic tool. Debt is an archontic tool. Cultural expectations that reduce you to a consumer or a worker or a member of a tribe are archontic tools. These systems benefit from your unconsciousness and will resist your awakening. But here's the secret they don't want you to know. Their power is entirely parasitic. They have no actual authority except what you grant them. You are the only source of your obedience. Your consciousness is the only thing that makes their system work. When enough people withdraw their participation, when enough consciousness awakens and stops playing by their rules, the whole structure collapses. This is why the work of awakening is not just personal, it's revolutionary. Every person who wakes up is a crack in the facade of the Demiurge's kingdom. Think about how this applies to your own life right now. What authorities have you accepted without question? What rules have you internalized that don't actually serve your highest good? What narratives about who you are, what you're capable of, what's possible, have you accepted without testing them against your direct experience? These are the places where the Demiurge's prison operates most effectively, not through external force but through internal surrender. The path forward is clear even if it's not easy. You question everything. You seek direct experience over second-hand belief. You cultivate compassion while maintaining discernment. You engage with the world without being consumed by it. You help others awaken through your presence and your example. You trust that your struggles have meaning and that your spiritual journey serves something far greater than yourself. You remember again and again that you are divine consciousness temporarily experiencing limitation. And as you do this work, as you genuinely commit to your own awakening, something miraculous begins to happen. You start to see the monad's secret plan operating in your own life. Challenges that seemed meaningless reveal themselves as gifts. Relationships that seemed random reveal themselves as assignments. Detours that seemed like failures reveal themselves as necessary lessons. Your entire life becomes a coherent narrative of awakening rather than a series of accidents and misfortunes. This is the transformation that comes from integrating the truth of Gnostic philosophy not just intellectually, but in every moment of your existence.